Recording is going, and then we will begin. All right, so once again, thank you for joining us today for MicroAge Talks Technology. My name is Maria Fiore. I'm the Director of Operations for MicroAge, and I'm joined by our special guest, James Welburn, Business Development Manager for Microsoft 365, who's with our partner SureWeb. So welcome back, James. I know you were with us just a month ago doing another one of these for us.
Feels just like yesterday, Maria. And yeah, thank you so much for having us back. There really is. It's so much fun just to kind of paint a picture of the future here. So again, really happy to be back with you.
That's great, thanks. So as we were saying, so in our previous webinar in March, we went through some of the Microsoft 365 Copilot updates, but today's presentation will focus on what a successful Copilot deployment looks like. So, but before we get started, just wanted to go through some housekeeping notes. First of all, as you probably noticed, all attendees are muted to reduce any background noise that we might have. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation by using the questions panel of the webinar tool, and we'll try to get to all of them. The webinar is being recorded, and a link of the recording will be sent to everyone a little later today. In the same email, you'll also receive a link to download the ebook that we're making available, and we encourage you to take advantage of these resources and share them with colleagues that may benefit from today's information. Lastly, at the end of the webinar, you will receive a short 3-question survey to gather your feedback. Please take a moment to share your feedback with us so we can improve future webinars. So before James gets started, I'm going to take a moment to give a brief overview of who we are for those who may not know us. So MicroAge is a Canadian technology service provider with 40 locations across Canada. We've been providing IT services and solutions to our clients for more than 40 years. We strongly believe in being a partner to our clients. To do this, our approach is to understand your organization. We need to understand your operations, your clients, your people, your goals, your challenges, your opportunities, and all of this will help us recommend and provide the IT services and solutions that are right for you. That's a quick overview of who we are and how we engage with our clients. And with that, James, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Maria, and just again re thank you to all for having made some time in your day today. I just like to take a minute. I might have done this last time as well, but I just want to take a minute and reiterate what we see on the screen here. So we share what we get to work with partners across North America. Um, with MicroAge in particular, I find that even the relationships that I've built with many of the locations there, it is human and really that understanding and that passion for what they do is something that I see very largely across the space, and particularly with this team. So again, I just wanted to take a moment to kind of tip my hat to you and the team there. You guys do you do God's work. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks, James. That's very kind.
That being said, we'll dive into a little bit more about Copilot. So last time we had the privilege of speaking to you, it was around a lot of what Copilot is and what's coming down the pipe and how this can be impactful for your business. We did have many questions for the last session. Again, that's for as a presenter, that's something that's just it means so much, and it's what we're here for. But we did want to address some of them that we hadn't gotten to last time. And more specifically, it was around the use of agents and Copilot. So I did use this analogy last time, but the way of differentiating when we think of Copilot and we think of the agents, AI agents that go along with it, it really is to see Copilot as the doctor, as the GP, and then agents would then be specialists within their individual field. So one example might be using Copilot for the web or Copilot chat, where I can get a lot of general information, very similar to ChatGPT, the same model actually. Or I can think of an agent as being my Copilot in Outlook, my Copilot in Teams or in PowerPoint, Excel, and so on, where these Copilots will actually understand the terminology with regards to that particular app. So if I say, hey, change these slides to my Copilot in Excel, maybe it's not a slide specialist when we think of Excel, but changing these slides in my PowerPoint Copilot, my agent built within PowerPoint, well, now it understands, it knows slide means visual. It can help me to reposition, to build up, to change the visuals, etc. But a specific a specific agent in particular.
The agents are quite new, from what I understand. They just released them not too long ago, I think. And yeah, people are. I was on a webinar, and people are just experimenting with all these agents and what they can do and how they can use them and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there are so many. So if anyone's ever presented before, you know how the demo gods are here. So we'll see how well this goes. This is really my environment. You can see my old picture here back when my hair was a little bit fuller. Uh, but we can see in here, these are some of the agents that I have within my own Copilot. So the visual creator, prompt coach, idea coach, learning coach, the stream navigator I have to go and kind of play around with. It's oddly suspicious, but I'm gonna go check it out. But the career coach, writing coach, etc. So these are all ideas of agents. So I might say with these pre-built prompts here, so show me 3 good prompt examples. And this one's really good for anyone getting used to AI or getting into this here. Again, this is a specialist. It is Copilot, so it has the same underlying data, but now it has been additionally trained in the context of prompting for this prompt agent. So it does give me some tips and tricks. Again, you can create these agents right over here. You can create an agent in 2 or 3 minutes if you're looking for a base level agent. But what a tool. So really think of having a team of specialists at your side, an email agent, a phone call, or maybe voicemail agent that can help us summarize the voicemails received. But all this can be done again in a couple clicks to have these very specific resources here for you. When it comes to licensing, so you will notice that the Copilot chat is something that's available. So if you're a Microsoft 365 subscriber, this is available to you. It is free. When we think of ChatGPT is probably the most one of the most renowned tools in the space here. It is a consumer product. There are commercial versions, so not to put it down at all there. But we do want to keep our data as secure as we can. And again, if I were to flip back to my Copilot, we do have this here, this enterprise grade data protection. This just means that all of my data that I'm putting into here, so my questions, my prompts, help me reformulate this pitch to X customer. Well, all of that data stays private to me, much like the rest of my Microsoft data. It is private to myself or to my organization. So keeping this secure is a really big part of it. And then really when we get into the actual licensing or the paid licensing of Copilot for 365, well, now we get it really built into our applications. We definitely have the agents available as well. And the control system has a lot to do with the security and then even analytics. So you can actually measure and track adoption within your team, even garner some insights like how much time are we saving vis-a-vis emails or meeting notes. But you can get some of these high level insights right within the tool. So it really is designed for the flow of our work. And this was probably the question that came up the most in the last webinar. So we did want to take a minute just to review it quickly together. And this is forever the case, and it varies from user to user. Maria and I were having a chat about this earlier. It's just how she'll leverage her Copilot versus how I'll leverage mine will be different given our roles. But what can it do for me? And without addressing 500 scenarios in a call, well, here's one great resource that we can start to look at, or 3 great resources more so that we can start to look at to help inspire you, to help you define what Copilot can really be for you and for your team. So this adoption site is really, really powerful. This will give you resources right from the leadership level on things to consider in terms of getting ready, onboarding, and engaging, right into user enablement, so how users can go about being more familiar with the tool and the potential that exists. And then finally, from a technical readiness, I say finally just because the way it's laid out here, probably first and foremost, or kind of a 1A, 1B scenario here. What's required from the technical side to ensure this rollout is smooth, data is secured, and there's no data exfiltration or
Leakage.
unintentional sharing, leakage, exactly. So that's one great resource. I do believe you'll be getting these slides at the end of the
Actually, yeah, that's a thanks for reminding me. I had forgotten to mention that if you want a copy of the presentation itself and with the links and all of that stuff, you should go on the webinar tool. There's a section called handouts, and you can download the presentation from there. If for some reason you can't find it, no worries. Just ping me on the questions panel or send me an email or however you want to get in touch with me, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of the presentation as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, see, so you'll get these are live links you'll be able to action here, including even a course or a class. So it is a learn on demand skill path, but MS4007, and you do get a nice little badge to go along with that. Another really powerful resource, and this one I'll actually jump into live, and this is called the Scenario Library. So again, you will get these live links. Otherwise, feel free to type this in. Just aka.ms/copilot/scenario library. And how that looks is, well, just like this. So through here, it'll actually help us to gain inspiration. I think it's very much like if we think of Google when it first came around, it was how to do a search term and how do you get your keyword searches that we used to that we do in some cases, but that we used to do more so. And it was almost mind blowing to think of how much this thing can do, and without really knowing where to start. It was probably just like restaurant menu and very kind of basic terms, and now you're getting a little bit more refined in terms of your location or the type of cuisine. That similar evolution is going to be what we're going to see over the next couple of years here with regards to AI. So more inspiration, more ideas, and where do I start? This is a really, really handy resource here. I'm a sales guy, so I'll jump into my little sales section down here. But I can go through and get a couple of ideas if I want to create personalized offers, improve customer meetings, make a customized pitch. Right? So these are all things that we can do within the tool. And let's say if I were to go to create a personalized offer, for example, you can see the sales scenario. I can definitely go and get the scenario guide. So this will give me a day or step by step, kind of a day in the life, how I might be able to leverage a Copilot to create personalized offers. And what's more interesting, or as per me, is not just being able to do that work, but we're actually able to measure and track that from an organizational perspective. Or what are the KPIs? How am I actually influencing my day-to-day or my organization? So we might assume that with more personalized offers, we'd have a higher close rate. Our revenue per sale, average revenue per sale would be in here, or how many opportunities were pursued. So how much more time do I have to keep hunting, quote unquote. Excuse me. And then if we keep scrolling down here, not to mention there is a download that you can do really per scenario. But as we keep scrolling down, we can see in Copilot Chat, we might be able to use the analyze customer goals, referring to recent email threads, meeting notes, public information. So this is one that is super impactful. We were doing an event. This goes back about a year. We were doing an event at a hotel, and we were speaking about AI and Copilot. We were in the conference center at the hotel, and we did this live in front of the room. Just in the Copilot chat, and we said, "Hey, I'm going to present Copilot to the staff here at the hotel. Help me use terminology that'll be more common to them." And it was great. Me not being from the industry, the hotel industry or hospitality at all, it gave me terms like 24/7, like concierge that directly relate to the IT field. That could in turn endear me to the staff there. It's a really powerful tool. Creating the offers in Word, again, going back and optimizing, so reiterating, going back to the agent or the chat in this case. But these are all, again, just different ideas, not to go too in depth here, but this is a great resource. Find your function or your task, your industry, and Copilot will surely give you a couple of really good ideas on how you can be a little bit more efficient, maybe a little bit more precise in what it is you're up to. So that was one resource we really wanted to put out here. So do absolutely go take a look. Another really great one, again, you'll get all these prompts, all these resources here. This one here is called a prompt library. And what we'll be able to do in here is actually to be able to filter by which app we're in. So you can see Copilot exists in all of these applications and more, quite honestly. But we could go, let's say, in Teams, and then I can go by task. So now that I'm in Teams, do I want to catch up? Do I want to analyze? Do I want to create something? Ask, learn, edit, etc. But you can really start to filter down by what it is you're trying to accomplish and even within where. And then Copilot will actually give you, or the prompt library more so, will actually give you prompts. So it's not starting from scratch. It's not starting from, oh my gosh, how do I even relay this to this machine? But rather, well, here's a really good place to start. I want to summarize Teams messages where I've been mentioned this week. Really simple, really easy. You can actually just copy and paste this. You can even save it to be one of your favorites. So if ever you're lacking inspiration, you don't know where to start, this thing can do so much. Oh my gosh. Just a nice deep breath with all of us here and start to lean on these tools. Lean on your friends at MicroAge as well. I've had the privilege of working with many throughout the country over the years. And like I said earlier, these folks care. So if they don't know the answer, they're like, from what I know of them, they're not too proud. We'll get involved and we'll help where we can as well. But largely, this is just to reinforce that you are supported. There's resources available, and it's a lot less daunting once you have a little bit of direction. So again, just lean on us. And again, this is touching back to the last webinar. It was a very common and a very common both from the webinar and from what we see across the channel. So that scenario library, again, we just looked at. Excuse me. There are additional learning resources as well. So the prompt gallery is where we just were. Microsoft Learn has a bunch of resources, again, with learning paths. And then this one here is the Microsoft Copilot Academy. So these are actually a service within Microsoft or within your Microsoft tenant where you can actually push out this training. So you might say your sales folks are going to get a lot more on Outlook, on Teams, and Word to varying degrees, whereas maybe your marketing team will get more of a structure around PowerPoint, right? And Excel, so we can go through the analytics and Power BI. We can actually push out custom tailored learning path per department or per function for that matter. Boom, so that was kind of just catching up from the
Deployment.
last round.
Let's talk about deployment. Yeah.
Yeah, and now we get into how we move forward with Copilot. So how does my organization go about an adoption? And more than that, how does my organization go about a successful adoption for what concerns AI and Copilot in particular in this case? So we start off right here, right in the middle of, oh my gosh, which way do I go? So again, we'll give you some tips and tricks here. Every organization, I'd say, is really quite unique. We all may be similar, but we all have our own processes internally, our own staff relationships and data sprawl that we'll want to take into account. But largely, we're going to be looking at from a leadership perspective, and then so them as the stewards, as really as the leaders, as you are, and then going through the technical readiness. So what does this mean to be technically ready for Copilot? And as importantly, we will look at the human change. Oops. Excuse me. So we will start right over here with the leadership side of it. And again, this is directionally, Rhea and I, as we're prepping for the event here today, we were chatting and we're kind of going through it and we're talking through it together and we're saying, well, this is oddly similar to most other IT implementations and projects that we've gone through as an organization. We said it's very much more of the same, thankfully. So we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but it really does start with the leadership in terms of understanding what do we do first. So the ABCs, as we'll have it in this case, would be from the leadership or the executive sponsorship team to be active. That's the A in our ABCs here. Be active, be a part of this success. We need our leadership team, as we did internally at ShareWeb, to help guide us in terms of what an AI adoption really means. Where will it be used? What are we looking to, how are we going to ensure that we'll achieve said success? And then how do we go about rolling it out? And Is our IT posture ready? How is our data being governed and managed? How are the roles and sharing permissions within the organization? But we needed a central kind of view of all that, and definitely as many of you do, and many of you are leaders yourselves, setting that direction, um, that type of roadmap for your team. How much time will your team have to learn and to get better, to practice and learn with this tool? Right? That's a pretty important consideration here. I don't necessarily think it's 10 hours a week of training, but does your team have an hour or two, maybe an hour per week, where they can confer with their colleagues, share knowledge between departments even? But that has to be something that we're going to consider as we're looking at this rollout. An old professor used to say that the 5 Ps, is prior planning prevents poor performance, right? So what is this roadmap? What is this flight path? Dad joke number one for today. What does this flight path look like when we think of an AI rollout? Again, it is active and even visible participation within the plan. Building a coalition. There's rarely is there a single person who understands every role intimately. Perhaps the owners and founders, obviously to varying degrees. But building a coalition. So this means I want to have stakeholders in each department that I intend to roll Copilot out to. What does success look like for you as a sales team, for you as a marketing team, as a support, as a development, as a financial, HR, etc.? But what does success look like for you? If we can give you Copilot, are we going to reduce the number of tickets that go into your HR team? How much time they spend digging through old handbooks and the like, or reinventing new processes internally? If we think of operations, well, let's get their buy-in, let's get their input, more importantly here, and let's make sure that we're crafting the rollout here and subsequent training, etc., with all of that in mind. So having a really overview or a top-down view with valuable input from the stakeholders. And the last one is going to be around communicate. It is 2025. We can go on about working from home and staying connected via Microsoft Teams, for example. But in this case, we're going to look at it really from communicating with, whether that be champions internally, again, going back to department heads. Hey, how are we tracking over here? HR, not to pick on anyone from HR, but hey, HR, we said we'd have our use cases defined by X date. How is that going? Where are your challenges? Can we help? And then maybe if it's not something they're finding immediate value in, or they're having trouble kind of quantifying what the efficiency gains would be, well, great. Well, here's how sales was doing it. Here's how our development team or operations team were going about it. But be that leader that we trust you all to be, and help to keep things moving forward. Again, simple ABCs. You'll get this. You can read through. I try not to read too much on some of these forums here, but packed with information and even links to ebooks via Microsoft and publications elsewhere that can help you to just make an informed project plan, essentially. And then from there, again, right, still at the leadership level here. So this is not something that James, the user, should be defining, although I may champion, I may advocate for certain things, but ultimately, again, I defer and I look to my leaders to help us establish, obviously, a strong culture. Is AI something we're open to? How do we go about it? Is this kind of frowned upon? Are we saying, no, there's nothing till 2027? But what does that look like? Are we starting to dip our toes in the water? Right? Like, what's our stance here, and how active are we going to be on this front? So this is always top down, as I'm sure most of you can relate. And then from there, it's this, and this is my favorite part of it all here, is the business strategy. And in particular here, what business outcomes are we driving? What is your goal? If we think of going to the doctor and it's, my knee hurts. Okay, well, you're going to take some pills, you're going to do some exercises, stretching, etc. But those are the steps you'll take to resolve your knee ailment. So what outcomes here? Maybe you want to spend less time going through emails and answering emails. Like, I was easily doing 2 to 3 hours a day in emails and chats. Now I'm probably down to about an hour and a half, hour. On a really good day, I'll get down to 30 minutes there, but I've definitely seen that gain. So what does 1 hour for James represent, whether that be financially, just from a time saved? And I think where it gets really interesting, it's not just how much time I saved, it's what can I do with that extra hour? And I think this is where AI goes from, wow, this thing is cool, to, oh my gosh, why did this take so long? But again, having that defined really at the front end is a really big part. That way, you know which way you're going, you know if you're on track. So again, we'll look to you, our leaders, to help define that. And this is unique per organization, per department, even. But having a good feel there will let you know if you're in the right direction. Leaning on, so I consider myself to be part of this group here, the Applied AI Experience. So diverse backgrounds within our team, especially in our organization, our partners alike. We all have different strengths. Some are very open to change and can't wait to get the new goodie. I was showing Maria of a Stream Deck, this really cool little thing that can help me insert my prompts a little bit easier. So who are these people? Identify them and lean on them, lean on their experience, their expertise. That's a passion often. So lean on them, get their input. Yes, this will work. No, that won't help. This other tool can do X, Y, or Z. But getting that buy-in, establishing a few champions could be a real difference maker. And these two, they ended up at the back here. I think it's largely just because we want to, is this something we're open to, is kind of the logic. How will this affect us? Do we have the right resources currently, or is it something we should look into? Is kind of the flow there. But this for me is again, just as they're all so important, I couldn't pick a favorite. It's like my children. Governance when it comes to AI and your strategy from an AI adoption, and data quality, more importantly. Where is your data? Are your is your security posture up to par? Is your data secure? Do you have clean data? Do you have 12 versions of the same document? If you're like, oh, what I used to do years ago was, we have this presentation we're doing, and it's FY25 presentation 1, and then I send it over, then it comes back as presentation 1.1, and then we get to a 2.1, and now we're at FY26 2.3, and we have 13 versions of the same document lying around. Well, what did that look like? Do you have that going on? Copilot will return somewhere between one of those 13 versions, right? Unless you specifically call out which one. Otherwise, Copilot will say, hey, I see presentation 1. That's what you asked, and I'm going to give you information. It might be less than adequate based on what your intention really was. So having that nice clean data, making sure the right people have access to the right stuff is also going to be really, really big part of your success here. And again, that quality data is really where it comes into, is where is all this? Is it on a USB key? Maybe we get that to the cloud so Copilot can query it, and again, pull insights and give you the info from it, and clean up any duplicates or triplicates you might have of a certain document. Again, from the leadership perspective, we'll look to you here to have an AI council. So this is one of Microsoft's recommendations, and one that we put in place very transparently here as well. We had one, so we started off, we had 10 licenses internally. There were stakeholders from many different departments within the organization. And it was, hey, you prove the use case for your team. You define what success looks like. For us, it was to be more responsive as we work with our partners. So emails, meeting recaps, being more attentive in those meetings were two really big use cases that we leaned on for sales. We quantified that in terms of time saved, average employee salary, and then we said, hey, there's an absolute case here for $40 a month. It's a no-brainer if we're getting 4 hours. And we're Canada, and everything we do is above board here. No one here is making $10 an hour, right? So we had that math, we had that ROI in mind, and then everything we did forward was with that same lens. Will this help? To what extent? Are we breaking even or gaining efficiency? If so, then we'll move forward. So having that type of structure in place is huge. And again, so the executive sponsors will help to drive adoptions. That's going to be your champion. That's the person who's like, hey, look at this cool thing I just did. I just saw that. And this video, here's a cool thing you should watch or a good read. But you want these resources internally. The people who are passionate about it are the ones who are going to lead you forward. And then change management, maybe HR. What does that look like? Do employees have, or do you have a enablement or a training program internally? How much time is being allotted for this team to work on this craft? It really is a new skill that we're all going to build here. And again, finally, the key putting the risk and the security on the fourth part of it here, but this is really, really important. Just understanding your sector, your organization, or industry more so. Just any compliances that you have to adhere to. What's great with Microsoft is that they do have 6 AI principles. Shouldn't have said 6 because now I'm going to want to say them all. But namely, transparency, accountability. There's a certain bias check and safe use. So we're going to want to leverage a tool that meets all of these. Am I going to be worrying about copywriting? Right. So this is something that Microsoft Copilot here can absolve us of. They own that responsibility there, as they just provide the output. So having all these considerations, again, staying safe, kind of measuring twice, cut once, if you will, are going to be some of the tips that we'll be able to share. And the last one, when it comes to the leadership, again, we touched on a little bit earlier, but what is that high value scenario? Again, if you're looking at it for sales, I go back to it. Again, I'm in sales, so I speak to what's more relevant to me in this case here, but where are we going to see the gains? And let's start there. And you might have a case for everyone in your organization. I can make a case for most of you on the call here today. Which ones are going to give us the greatest return in the shortest amount of time? Like, this is where we want to start. This is going to help to solidify our adoption going forward. If I win here, then chances are I'll win there when it's their turn. So start with the ones that are the most impactful, where you have champions and an organizational or departmental need to address, right? Going back to the doctor there. But let's define that. And then again, we'll be able to track our progress. Is this working? Yes or no? This fancy shirt here with this little tag says Copilot for everyone. In reality, there are some roles and positions that maybe Copilot isn't going to be the end all be all. Right? So define what those scenarios are. I firmly do believe there's a value for everyone. Will it be a 30% gain or a 5% gain? This is where we'll start to identify which ones are the most relevant in the short term, and then we can take it from there. Okay, so we can do a quick pause. I don't know if we had any thoughts or anything from our friends so far.
Don't see any questions right now, but just to go back, that the message, I guess, is that leadership needs to get involved to figure out where they're going to get their the best value and start with that kind of deployment. You're not, I think what I'm hearing, James, is you're not going to be deploying across the board, everybody at the same time. Let's go, right? That would be difficult. So you got to identify your use cases by function, and then decide, okay, well, we'll do this department, we'll do these 3 or 4 people or 10 people or whatever it is, and see how it goes and build on it, and then optimize and continue the process afterwards. That's what I'm hearing.
That's exactly it.
And leadership needs to be involved because they're the ones who are determining, they or you are the ones who are determining, what is the outcome? What do you want to get from this? Increase productivity, efficiency. You want to get your service desks to work, better, or have, access to knowledge bases. Do what is it that you want to do within the different departments? And then from there, you work it through.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? And even if we get into this human change component here, giving James an hour a week to train on a new tool, like that's 4 hours of productivity lost potentially. And I say lost, I should have put my air quotes here, but 4 hours of productivity otherwise invested, versus the 8 hours a month that I expect to see come out of James's 4-week 1 hour sessions, right? So is this a move that we can afford? Is this the right time, given the ROI for James's role? And that's really it. Let's again, we lean on you to be our leaders. So a few things we can do when it does get into that human change. And again, we'll share all of this. These are all links, everything with the pretty pink over here will be shared, the enablement guide, community, etc. But there are a couple of things. So we can start with, again, very selective rollout, starting off with champions with a team lead, much like what we had done internally at ShareWeb. It was 1 or 2 for sales, 1 or 2 for marketing, for product, for dev, for support, operations, etc. But we gave each kind of department lead a license or 2 to get familiar, to help define that use case. And then from there, they would make the case to HR, to our finance team, and say, hey, well, here is why, and here's our gains that I expect to see from my unit. Perfect. And then we did a slow and gradual rollout. So it went from our team of SMEs, our pre-sales team, who were the first ones who got to enjoy it. Then it went to our business development team, then to our account managers, and then finally to our inside sales reps, operations, et cetera, have been rolled out since. But it was slowly but surely a very gradual rollout. And always with that business sense or that business value in mind is this worth? And again, we're probably a couple hundred licenses in here at ShareWeb, and no signs of slowing down. The next stage will be the onboard and engage. So last little anecdote here, then I'll get back on track. When I first got Copilot, my first week or two were, I wouldn't say I would have written home, and I never would have thought a year and a half later I'd be getting to present about it. I was very like, oh my goodness, those Microsoft videos were really something, and that is not my reality here. So it was a little bit less than enthused when I first received it. But then from speaking with my colleagues, by getting some more inspiration in terms of what I can do, again, by going back to that prompt gallery, I said, oh, well, that's applicable to me in my role. I can do this and I can do that. And then slowly but surely, my repertoire of prompts or use cases just ended up growing over time, again, just from practice and having a touch of a community to lean on. There's also surveys that we can do. Microsoft had one in particular where they had surveyed, I believe it was some thousands of people. And it was, if you had to pay for Copilot. So now you've had Copilot for 3 months. If you had to pay for Copilot, would you? And many people, and I definitely would be part of that group had they surveyed me. Yes, absolutely. If I had to pay for a Copilot license myself, given the efficiency that I see, and how ahead I am largely on my work. I'd say largely because life is a vacuum. As soon as you have some time, something else will absolutely fill it. But I can definitely say my output has increased since I feel more satisfied as an employee at 5 o'clock ish when I wrap up my day. More often than not, I say, hey, that was a good day, and I got X, Y, and Z done. And I might even ask Copilot to help me do a recap of my day, just to kind of give me that pat on the back and good job, buddy. So just getting a feel for what your users are using it for, what they're doing, again, will help you to get that feedback. And if you see a certain team is lagging or is not maybe using it as fully, one is that you can either dedicate training, continuous learning, learning paths, prompt guides, etc. And as an absolute worst case, you can always reassign that license to somebody from a team who really does see a more immediate value, right? Some of those high value scenarios. And then the extend and optimize, this is one that we're going to be building towards, I think, collectively as a, dare I say, as a society. Gosh, that sounds smart. Over the next couple of years. But how do we take this even further? So now we're going to get into agents. We're going to get into autonomous agents. And we're going to get into orchestration. So that means that an agent will actually be able to interact with other agents. All right, so you have a person, an agent, managing other agents, right? So this is where it's all going. And that's kind of the let's walk, run, crawl, walk, and then run. But this is definitely where it's headed. And there are even some scenarios that are very applicable even today that we can start to consider.
So just James, a question
Yeah.
that came in from Sue that she's asking, how much does Copilot cost?
Yeah, so Copilot's available either annually or annually with a monthly payment. So you'll have essentially 12 payments there. It's about $40 a month here in Canada, maybe just a touch over. So at first glance, I understand when we're thinking about IT spend, it does sound like quite a lot, but I'd invite any single one of you to just kind of refer to your pay stub. If you look at um, whatever you're making per year and whatever it comes down to per hour, um, look at that amount, and then how many hours of efficiency gain do you need for that to break even? Quite often it'll be anywhere between kind of 1 to 3 hours, maybe on the lower end of the pay scale. But often there's a really good value, and it really is that zooming out. Hey, at 20 bucks an hour, well, that's 2 hours of time I need to save over the whole month. If you think of drafting, maybe drafting an email, that might be 5 minutes, right? And just that, if you do that once a day, that's 25 minutes a week. That is virtually your 2 hours in the month, right? So it really does add up. It snowballs. And then once you get proficient at a single use, well, then you're going to add in more. And that 5 minutes becomes 10 and becomes 20 a day before you know it. So I'm just say I understand 40 bucks when I first saw it was that's how much I pay for my office suite or close to. But then again, when you see that efficiency gain, that's what we say, start there. Don't just dive in and don't give it to everybody, but start with these use cases. Make sure it makes sense for your business. It's a challenge we always put out there because I'm extremely confident there's a value to offset that initial cost.
And just another question came in from Nancy. She asked, can we use Edge for now and then start deploying Copilot licensing during the phased approach?
Entirely,
Yeah,
absolutely, and entirely.
I was
It's
gonna say that's how we did it, and it's pretty good. It really is.
and it can do so much, right? And your data
Yeah,
is protected. So that's a big part.
yeah,
I'd even go as far as to say that this can even help you interact with AI in Outlook and Teams, etc., as you'll have more practice with your prompts and interact with AI. So absolutely, it is free and available to all Microsoft subscribers. So absolutely, Nancy, dive in, leverage those resources for inspiration. They do have, sorry, at the risk of jumping around too much here, my apologies.
you're gonna make us dizzy.
Yeah, I try not to. I was very mindful. But right through here, this Copilot chat, if we go into their prompt library, and you'll actually see prompts that you can use in that tool specifically. So again, more inspiration here for you. All right, want to practice some Japanese? How do you say thank you for your time in Japanese? Like, why the heck not? This is all entirely available to all of us.
Do you know what? I mean, I use it too for like translations, right? And I mean, I I'm here in Quebec, so French is something that I do all the time, but you know, sometimes you're looking for the right word and you keep asking, what's the alternative here? I need something, and here's the context, you know, help me out. And this is on the free version, right? It's not even on the paid version. So it's
That's
pretty
it.
good. It's a right, that's a good question, Nancy. Yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely, and start there. Like by all means, like it's included, it's there, it's safer than the free consumer version of ChatGPT, and
Yeah.
it's built on the same large language model, the same infrastructure, if you will. So absolutely. This I won't speak too much to this side. I think we covered it quite largely, but really is, and we're trying to reinforce this point here, I guess, is find your use cases, make sure it works, define what the ROI is, and then it's not for us to say, hey, buy this thing. Like, I'm in sales, but this is a nice sale for me in terms of try it. It's free to start. Just on the free version, I'm sure you're going to find a ton of value. Now, if you can only fathom that without needing to copy and paste your emails into there, if you can inline, just have Copilot reply, hey Copilot, tell them no. And Copilot's, hey Maria, well, I never know to Maria and the team here. Hey Copilot, tell them yes. And I say, hey Maria, and Copilot will do this nice big thing. It can make it formal. It can make it more casual, but it can really dress up that email. As I work with a lot of very tech-minded folks who are maybe not overly social. So I know some of my colleague and my more immediate, very technical teammates, they leverage it just for that. Like that's alone is a game changer for them. It is tell them no, this is the answer. And Copilot's, hey, really appreciate you reaching out. Here's what we'd suggest to do, and it dolls it up, right? And it makes it into a language that's more normal for the rest of us that aren't as techy. So yeah, there's a million use cases there. And again, the value isn't something we'll need to preach for very long. Um, Trying to dip your toes in the water and you'll see exactly what we're saying.
So, Nancy, you have some really good questions, and I think it's a really good idea to reach out to your MicroAge to talk about some of the issues, or not the issues, the challenges or the questions. Let's put them that you have on the that you put in there, because yeah, that would probably be best.
Yeah, and it is right, and we speak in kind of in general thoughts
Yeah.
in these forums here, right? But it really is a as you hear us go through the slides here, it really is a per user, a per department, and to your level more of an organizational decision or rollout. But absolutely, I mean, again, I know many of the MicroAge team members here over the years, and these folks care.
Well,
Like
we go
they'll understand.
back to, Nancy, we don't know, like, right here, right now, and especially me, I have not, I don't know what your environment looks like. I don't know, anything about your business and your operation. So, I can say something, but it may not be correct. So it's best to really, you know, talk to the MicroAge so they can understand your business, or if they don't already, and see what the best options are for you.
Yep. Yeah, and these are deep dives that are absolutely available.
And
Yeah, both from
we get all these questions, by the way, from the webinar tool, and so we then send it to the MicroAge that is closest to you, so that they can reach out as well, so that you can have these conversations.
oh yeah, and with any luck, Nancy, since it sounds like you have a few, I don't see the questions here, but it sounds like you have a few, and it sounds like they're really fun. So to our MicroAge colleagues there, if I could help with that call at all, there's the stuff that I get to learn so much from, kind of selfishly here, and yeah, we love to help inspire. So yeah, that's super fun for us. The last little part here around the human change factor here is that Microsoft does have structures in place to help us with this, right? Like Microsoft doesn't bury their head in the sand too much here. They understand there's a lot to know. It's a whole new way of thinking. Interacting with AI is a whole new. It's the next revolution that we're kind of living through here in modern days. Um, so they do have a couple of different ways, whether that be through communities where you can share best practices and just kind of brainstorm out loud with some like-minded folks. Um, there are there is rather an academy as well that you can leverage. So hands-on prompt guidance, learning paths to really help you bolster your skills there. And then finally, when it comes to the actual adoption or rollout, and is this really being adopted by our team? Well, there are analytics and a specific dashboard for Copilot available, where you can really say, hey, well, we've actually 34,000 is a lot of meetings here, mind you, but how many meeting summaries were created? How many those meeting summaries, sorry for squeezing in here, how many meeting hours, but you get some of these high level metrics when it concerns emails as well. So you can get a really good feel for, hey, is this working? Does our team appreciate it? Are we seeing the usage come out of it? And you can kind of extrapolate to get that ROI from there. Last one, and again, not last by any stretch, this is so crucial when we think about deploying AI or unleashing a tool into our environment, essentially, is did we do it the right way? Did we cover all of our bases? A super common example we'll say in this space here will be, should little James from sales have access to the HR files of his colleagues, right? Maybe not. I'm a super nice guy, 100% above board, I promise you all. But is that information I need to have? Likely no. Are there any acquisitions we're looking into? And this sort of thing. I'm in sales. I have a big mouth. Don't tell me your secrets. This is not the guide to know them all. I love sharing. So maybe we'll restrict what James can see from an acquisition standpoint or some company offering. But we need to have these limits in place. Copilot will see everything I as a user can see. Just unlike myself, Copilot knows where to look for it all, versus James who would have to dig infinitely through stocks and piles of data. My Copilot will just be able to surface that. So we want to do 4 main things. There's a lot more work than saying 1, 2, 3, 4 here, but in a nutshell, is it really James? When we think of who is a quote unquote risky user, or what is a risky user? If James is in Montreal 1 minute and then in China 10 minutes later, not to pick on them whatsoever here, but if I'm elsewhere minutes later, maybe that's abnormal. Maybe James doesn't have a teleporter. I don't know. So let's ask James to revalidate it's really James, that his identity wasn't compromised. But Microsoft has plenty of tools there that can allow for conditional access, maybe asking me to go to my Authenticator app and put in a code. But having some of these controls in place, make sure that it's always James when they say it's James, not just someone who saw me type in my password. And it's definitely not password123. But if someone were to get that very secret password of mine, well, now they have to dually authenticate or double prove who they are. And it can be a lot more stringent, again, based on where I am even. Similarly for my device, if I lose my device in an airport, gosh forbid, this little feature within Microsoft here called Microsoft Intune can actually allow my IT team to erase company data from my device. So there's no like, hey, James, can you please? Or hey, malicious actor who stole James's phone, can you please not look at these sensitive documents? But rather my company can just pull the information. My data is then safe. James can only get into company data on, let's say, an approved device, on a device that's been updated, that's not 15 years old and jailbroken. So we're going to want to have some of these controls in place here. This is the one I was going back to around the HR. Should James see everything that the HR is up to, or my acquisition team is up to, or finance, or what have you? Probably not. So within the Microsoft 365 suite, there's a feature called Microsoft Purview. So this will allow you to identify data, to mitigate risk and manage data, and even have controls for ongoing data management, something like a label that'll say, hey, this is confidential. And if I receive a file that's confidential, maybe I just don't have access to it. Maybe I can read it, but I cannot edit and I cannot share. Maybe this is a credit card number where if it notices me typing a credit card number anywhere within my system, it'll flag it or it'll block it first and foremost, and then flag it to IT. Like these are all controls that we have within the Microsoft suite. Some additional licensing may be required for depending the depth of what you want to do here, but having this in place is really key. That's why you hear so much talk around security when it comes to AI. Last analogy for the day, I promise. If someone were to, gosh forbid, kind of break into my home here, the old way, 2023 consumer world here, they would have to kind of ransack the house and go through every cabinet and see so if they could find a safe, and then they have to kind of get into the safe. So there's a lot more work for them to be able to get to the goods, so to speak. When we think of AI being in the mix here, well, now if someone gets in, they say, hey, where's the safe? What's the code? AI is just going to give that back, right? They're just going to give the safe and the codes. So we want to make sure, hey, is James really allowed in here? Yeah, he is. Okay. Did we authorize James on that device? Sure. Now, what's he trying to access? Oh, James cannot access this. Exposure or overexposure, rather, denied, right? So we want to have all these controls in place. And similarly, when it comes to AI apps, am I going to unleash some third-party app that my uncle's wife's brother-in-law told me about into my environment? Do I trust that, right? So we can actually have visibility into all the AI tools that our teams are using, and they are using them. Whether our heads are in the sand too much about it or not, they are using these third-party and uncontrolled and unsecure apps. Well, how can we start to shut those doors down? How do I lock my windows, so to speak? Right. So we want to make sure that we have a strong posture in place to make sure that everything we're doing, layered protection, that the AI remains a friend and not a foe. And if ever you're not sure where to start, again, our friends at MicroAge will take the time to know, as opposed to this one-to-many format as I'm in here today. They'll take the time to know you and your business intimately, and really start to identify it. There's also a tool from Microsoft from which you can actually go through yourself and get an idea as to where you stand from an identity management, device management, data governance. Do you have the right licensing? Are there the right use cases? But this will actually give you an organizational readiness score. And then you'll be able to say, okay, well, there are a few blockers. We have no identity protection, but you'll start to see what your most logical next step would be. All right, so again, far from going at this alone, you have an amazing support structure through MicroAge ourselves, even Microsoft on as need be. But again, we're experts, especially in MicroAge. Again, I can't sing enough praises here. These folks care, so let us just help you out.
We're going to start blushing here,
I
James.
you know me for a few years here, Maria. I don't just kind of throw out compliments too freely. There, it really is like I think of 4 or 5 year colleagues in various locations here, just on top of my head, that are genuinely good people and who have genuinely, I've had conversations and I've seen them in action where there's actual heart to what you do. That is not something we see across the entire industry, I can assure you. And um, I'm like a little guy, so to speak, so I really appreciate the heart quotient, and you guys have it in spades.
Thank you.
Last resource here, and then we will jump into hopefully a quick Q&A here. But you'll get all of these links. Don't be overwhelmed. There is a lot. Start from where you are. But there is a user enablement here in terms of videos, articles, and courses that you can take. Similarly, on the technical readiness side, a lot of information. We understand, as well as anyone here, we showed 35 links at least in the presentation today. It's a lot. Do exhale with us at the end of this. Reach out to MicroAge. We will find a way to go about this transition, this forward momentum with you. And it'll be done in a way that everyone understands. We're all aligned, but there is a lot to consider. So we just don't want anyone to take it too lightly, but also not to get too overwhelmed. We are here to support you.
Excellent. And just to add another link, yeah, so this is the link. I'm going to put it in the chat actually and give you, so you can, if you want to download a copy of the ebook that we're making available, it really kind of summarizes the deployment process and maybe gives you a couple more, examples and how to follow the process of deploying. So if you want to download the links in the chat, but you will be receiving this as well, like I mentioned earlier, in the next couple of hours, so that you don't have to furiously write down any links. You'll be getting the link to the ebook as well as a recording of this, so that you can review it if you like. So there, like I said, there was a few questions and probably best answered, one-to-one. But the one that Nancy did ask that since we have 2 minutes here, James, if you want to, give your opinion on it, it'd be interesting. And she asked, if we compare Copilot and ChatGPT, how secure is it, the Copilot versus ChatGPT?
All right, so I do. I'm a human, right? Fancy shirt aside, I am a human. Believe it or not, at 5 o'clock, I go back to regular people life. I have used ChatGPT, again, full transparency. I would say if you're using the commercial version of ChatGPT, I'd feel a lot more secure. I'm extremely mindful what I put into the consumer version, including, so I get it to read me stories. I use the Copilot on my phone, very honestly, but initially when I was first dabbling with AI, I would have it generate stories for my kids before bedtime. With ChatGPT, I was always very mindful. I don't put any personally identifiable information. So I don't have their names. I don't put in kind of anything about the area where we live, our city, our language preferences, like really nothing specific to us, just because the world's just a really crazy place. So I would definitely lean a lot more into the Copilot side of things, where that data remains my data. Much like we have our spreadsheets in Excel, that same logic is there when it comes to Copilot. Is no one from Microsoft, no one from ShareWeb or MicroAge by any stretch can see that data. Same concept applies for AI. Copilot is infinitely more secure. ChatGPT paid version, they say they don't leverage your data. They can infer and take learnings from it, but they don't necessarily use to train the model. So slightly more secure. But Copilot really was designed with enterprise grade security in mind. So it is security first, AI second, whereas ChatGPT was get this thing to market quickly, and maybe not all the security checks were done to the same with the same rigor that Microsoft did.
Yeah, and Nancy, again with ChatGPT, it's policy, right? So if you don't want your people using it, especially if it's not the paid version with your organizational information, yeah, you kind of have to lock it down, I suppose, and put policies in place, or policies that say if you're using this tool, because ChatGPT is just one, right? There's like a million other tools there out there, but you might, like give them a guideline, like, when you're using these tools and they're not paid and they're not, within our guardrails, then, do not put in the company name, do not put in any, revenue information, any sensitive information or confidential information, even your name, those are things that you don't put in there because they will use it, and that's how they learn, right? So that's important for people to know, and to be perfectly honest, a lot of people don't know because they don't live in IT and they don't live in reading all these articles about these things, and they don't live in security either. They live in the real world, and in their real world they have work to do, or things to do. So um, it's a good idea to train them on that kind of stuff, right? And provide policies and guardrails so that if you are using these, and whether we like it or not, we all are, that these are the guardrails, these are the things you have to keep in mind, and make sure that you don't put the stuff in there, right?
With that in mind, if just really quickly here, if any of you want to, I don't know if it's a good read, but a read nonetheless, you'll take a look at how a certain Samsung employee actually had put some data into ChatGPT and what happened there. This is Samsung tech giant, and they had some of their IP leaked through there again. So it's let's say a comforting read, but one that may be slightly eye-opening even for those tech giants. So if it can happen to them, it can happen to us. So yeah, do be mindful out there.
Okay, so again, thank you for joining us today. Download the ebook, and hopefully you'll find value in that, and reach out to your MicroAge, your local MicroAge, because they can help you with any questions. And like I said, we have um, all the questions here, so we will be sending them to the different locations, so make sure that they can reach out to you and answer any questions you have or help you with what your needs are. I did want to mention, our next webinar is scheduled for May 15th. This time we'll focus on proactive and preventative cybersecurity measures organizations need to put in place in this age of AI and digitalization. So look for the invite in your inbox or on social media channels. We'll be getting that out in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully you can join us. And with that, again, James, thank you for a very
Thank you
informative
so much.
presentation. And thanks to all of you for spending time with us today. We know that you could be doing other things, so we appreciate your time, and we wish everyone a great rest of the day.
Here,
Thank
here.
you.